Men going their own way don't care if society collapses. Men are disappearing from society, and there's nothing anyone can really do about it. Today's video comes from the How Money Works channel. His channel will be linked in the description so that you can go check him out and support him. Watch to the end of the video to fully understand the implications of men walking away from society and not really caring if it collapses or not, and how that affects all of us. And now let's just go ahead and jump right into the video.
4 years ago, America and the rest of the world saw its most intense spike in unemployment in recorded history. In today's news cycle, that is ancient history. But what isn't ignored is what has been left behind. There are now over 10 million people, mostly men in America, who are not working, not studying, not retired, and not institutionalized. They are just doing nothing. COVID accelerated this trend, but it's been going on for decades. Since the 1960s, about 0.1% of American men have given up on work to never come back every single month. So why are so many people giving up so consistently? And more importantly, how are these people surviving without a job in this economy?
In October, Mississippi's labor force participation rate was nearly 54%, while the national rate was over 62%.
How many jobs on these two websites?
It's been over 1,000 combined.
They're not working and they're not looking for a job, and those are the folks who we have to get into the labor market.
Why aren't some Americans getting back to work? It's the million-dollar question.
There are a lot of reasons why someone might not participate in the labor force. They might have retired, they might be still studying for qualifications, there might be people who are too sick to work, stay-at-home spouses, members of the military who are clearly working but don't officially count as part of the labor force, and then of course, there are just really rich people who don't need to work to maintain their lifestyle. These groups have always existed, but there is a new group growing alongside them, which are people who have just given up. The fastest growing group of these labor force dropouts have been men between the ages of 25 and 55. Men in this age range would typically be in the prime of their careers, but more and more of them are not working at all. Now, some of this can simply be explained by the fact that more women have entered the workforce. In fact, up until 2008, women were entering the workforce almost as quickly as men were leaving it. Some men just took on domestic roles as stay-at-home husbands while their wives or partners focus on their careers instead. According to Pew Research, young women are now earning significantly more than young men in most major cities in America.
And I hope you caught that. This is something that's been going on since the 1990s. Women have been significantly out-earning men since the 1990s. Younger women, women who are in their 20s and early 30s, have been consistently out-earning men for 30 plus years now. Although, according to Thomas Sowell, going back to the 1970s, he did interviews in the 1970s claiming that women were actually, when you controlled for education, number of years worked, and factors like this, women were actually out earning men in the workforce going back to the 1970s. He also said that some minorities were also, black men were also out earning white men in the workforce as well, when you controlled for all the factors like education and so forth. This is a very interesting and controversial take on it. However, he's an economist, and he very well may be right. This is something that we've known for a long time, but no one wanted to really talk about it. Women have been out earning men for ages, for decades, for potentially 50 years now, while claiming that the gender wage gap exists. So after everything that men have lost, society has nothing for men. Basically, you're nothing more than an SLAVE. So what are men doing? Men are saying, well, you know what? Screw you. To heck with it. To heck with it, and to heck with society. We're just going to stay home and live our best lives. And the notion that they're not working entirely is not completely true. They're simply not working enough to really be counted. A lot of these guys are getting things like Social Security, disability, or they're collecting food stamps, or they're collecting a series of these things. So they may be getting Social Security, disability. They may also be collecting food stamps. They may be they may be on Medicaid. Because once you fall below a certain income level, like $15,000 or so, you can collect Medicaid. So these guys can be out there driving for Uber, doing some Uber Eats deliveries. And the thing is, men don't need much to survive. the average man can live happily in a shoebox at the side of the road. When I see idiots in my comments saying things like, I can't do that. I need a nice car and I need a nice house and blah, blah, blah. These are usually the guys who are also telling me they're making $200,000 a year and they cannot survive. And then they disappear on me when I tell them off. These are disgraceful individuals. You are making $200,000 a year and you cannot survive. That's right. Okay, well, then you need to start downsizing, little bro. And that's when they basically become angry and furious. How much money do you have in the bank, little bro? Bro, I don't have anything. Do you have enough money to cover rent for like a month or two? Bro, do you have 5 months? Bro, I don't have it. Can you cover 5 months rent? No. Can you cover 3 months rent? No. If you lose your job right now, what happens? I'm homeless. Okay, so you need to start downsizing. You know what, man? Mind your business. This is how stupid these individuals are. So no one is, guys, I laugh at people like that. If you come to my channel and tell me you make $200,000 a year and you have no money saved and you can barely afford food, oh, angry, you don't understand the real estate cost and blah blah blah, you're a joker. You basically want to continue living a life of luxury and ease. You want to live a life that you simply cannot afford, and you do not want to be financially literate and make any real sacrifices and compromises to the lifestyle you're currently living. All right? You deserve the streets. You deserve to be homeless.
Young women are also graduating college at higher rates than men, so it makes sense that a growing group of men are tossing aside typical gender roles and doing work that doesn't get counted as typical employment. If this were the whole story, there would be absolutely nothing wrong with this. But let's be honest. Having a stay-at-home parent, no matter what gender they are, is a luxury that most people simply cannot afford in the modern age, especially young people who are the fastest growing group of labor force dropouts. There is something more going on here. Nicholas Eberstadt is a political economist who published the book Men Without Work, which tracked the trend of working-age men simply giving up on work and largely removing themselves from society in the process. His book, which was first published in 2016, lines up perfectly with a 2022 study on the issue conducted by the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, which found that men without a college degree in particular were dropping out of work because their earnings power was significantly lower than their peers who did have a 4-year degree. That's not unusual, because college-educated people should expect to earn more than non-college educated workers on average. But the finding found that the gap between the two groups had widened significantly, especially amongst college-educated versus non-college-educated men. Now, this was particularly surprising to the researchers because it would actually make more sense that higher income workers would drop out of the labor force, because if they are earning a lot of money, they have a better chance of marrying a higher earning spouse or just saving up more money for an early retirement.
So, guys, one of my postgraduate degrees is actually in applied psychology, and that focuses heavily on statistics. So, I'm to some degree a statistician. A lot of these idiots will make these comments. Well, why is it that men who are college educated are, versus men who are less college educated have such a large disparity when it comes to, staying in the workforce, right? So what they're saying is men who are more likely to, men who have not gone to college and have not earned a college degree are more likely to drop out of the workforce than men who have earned a college degree. Because you would think that men who have earned a college degree would be more affluent, they would have more money and more savings. They would also be married to women who have more money and more savings, so they would have the luxury of being able to not work. That's the stupidity right there. They're not considering all the various factors. College is expensive. How much money does the average person have? How much college debt does the average person with a college degree have? You see, they don't want to admit that college turns you into a wage SLAVE. You will be working for the rest of your life to pay off these debts, to pay off these loans. Do you know how many people have went overseas saying they want to become a doctor, and now they have $1 million in student loan debt? It's ridiculous, absolutely, and it doesn't have to be $1 million. Even $40,000 is a large amount of money, especially if you're only making, let's say, 60,000. Many people don't even make that, and you have to survive. And what is the average cost of rent in a lot of places? Easily anywhere between $2,500 sometimes to $3,000 or more, depending on where you live. these college degrees are not worth it. So now you're stuck in the labor force, you're stuck in the workforce, working for the rest of your life to pay back debt. And $40,000 is a small amount, to be very honest, in modern society today, where it's very normal to spend anywhere from $20 to $40,000 a year per semester. That's per semester, but per year. So you can end up, by the time you graduate with just an undergraduate degree, easily owing anywhere from 100 to anywhere from 80 to well over $100,000. And if you go to graduate school, that's even more money. The norm for a person with a postgraduate education is hovering around $150 to $200,000. It's not uncommon for the typical doctor to be carrying somewhere between $300 and $500,000 in student loan debt. Dr. Mike, he's a popular doctor on YouTube. Some people were like literally going at it in the comments with him. Bro said something along the likes of, he was lucky. He ended up not having a lot of student loan debt. He only has like $200,000. And he acted like that was nothing. That was nothing. And that just kind of reflects how messed up it is when you go for these degrees. Like, oh, I only have like 200. He's like, I'm lucky. I only ended up with like $200,000. So, which is nothing for a doctor. Yeah, that just reflects how bad it is. So yeah, guys, it makes more sense. It makes plenty of sense that people who are not working, people who don't have college degrees are not working because they don't have that student loan debt to deal with and all of the attachments that come with it. By not going to college, by not getting one of those advanced degrees and not wasting a lot of your life, you basically get a jump on the workforce. So you're able to start working much sooner than people who waste their lives in college. You're able to build up some net worth. You may stay with your parents, so you start out, you're saving money. So by the time you leave your parents' house, because a lot of Gen Zers aren't being kicked out, but again, by the time you leave your parents' house, you at least have a nest egg, $10,000, $20,000 saved up. And that's if you even leave your parents' house. And then versus people who are out there in the world trying to create something for themselves, and they basically spend decades, literally decades, just working for someone else and not getting anywhere. Gen Zers, they're very selfish people. They're just like the boomers. They could care less about anyone else. The typical millennial has the same buying power, has the same financial power as your typical Gen Zer. So even though a lot of these millennials have 10, 15 years ahead of Gen Zers, they still have the same spending power as they do. That's how bad it is. Like, they've made no headway for the average millennial. And a lot of Gen Xers have ended up in the same conundrum as well. So people who just never went to college, don't have these student loans, and were able to work and just build up wealth, they don't have any attachment either. They can basically just live by doing some Uber Eats. Depending on the state you live in, your rent is maybe $500, $600 a month. You live in a shoebox at the side of the road very happily, and your gaming laptop, that's a one-time purchase. And guys, if you're enjoying the content on this channel, go and check out the Angry Guy Clubhouse. Inside, you'll get exclusive videos, top-tier expat and passport bro travel tips, digital nomad guides, passive income strategies, pop culture and geek culture commentary, and hard-hitting manosphere content. Free subscribers have access to videos, podcasts, articles, and a community chat, plus receive the passive income blueprint and digital nomad blueprint just for joining. Paid subscribers unlock even more value, including exclusive guides like the How to Build an Online Business in 24 Hours ebook, wealth building blueprints, and crypto updates. Join us today by clicking the link in the description and take your journey to the next level.
Instead, they found the opposite. The group that earned less were more likely to drop out of work. And yes, before you ask, the study did account for the fact that people not working won't be making an income, so they would automatically be in the non-working low-income group. Now, since men are now overrepresented in non-college graduates, they were the largest group of people giving up on work. But even though it's tempting to make this an entirely gender-specific issue, and to be honest, it would make for a more engaging YouTube video, there are some bigger forces at play here. The reason that people with lower incomes were dropping out was simply because they had less to lose and more to gain. Most unskilled jobs cannot buy you a comfortable lifestyle basically anywhere in America anymore. And as more people tie their identity and social status to their work and income, it's become much harder to accept unglamorous service positions. If you were given two options, honestly consider which one you would choose. You could scrape by working a few minimum wage jobs where you are on your feet dealing with customers and managers all day. A job where you are unlikely to advance too far without a degree, and you won't have much time or energy left at the end of the day to pursue side projects. You might also be working a job that you aren't exactly proud to share with your friends, family, or romantic interests. The other option is that you could scrape by on whatever government programs or family support you could find. Maybe work on some side projects in your spare time, or just fill your day with low-cost recreation like playing video games. I would like to think I appreciate the value of a hard day's work, but I have always had the luxury of a prestigious career and successful business. Given these specific options, how would you choose to spend your day?
You have to consider that there are also now many different ways to earn money compared to the way things used to be. The gig economy, a lot of people are now trying to make an entire living. Like, they've left their jobs and they're trying to do Uber. In fact, they've been doing it for years. They're doing Uber as a full-time job. I mean, Uber Eats as a full-time job, DoorDash, these types of positions. And it's very, very intriguing because you do this type of work and you make, just enough money. You can write off a lot of this. So for example, if you're doing Uber, you can basically write off everything. You can write off the cost of the car, you can write off the cost of the gas, you can write off all of these things. You can basically have a home office and write off the cost of that. There's so many factors that go into these, gig economy jobs. And those all, when you're writing these things off, because now you're a business, you can form an LLC and pay your taxes through your S corp. What's now occurring is you basically can lower your income to a point where you will now qualify for things like Medicaid. You will now qualify for things like even potentially food stamps. You'll qualify for a lot of different things that will allow you to offset your income. It's the crazy reality that we're now seeing, but modern women have really invited this reality upon themselves as well. Because they said that men, we don't want you, we don't need you, and now men are walking away from Western society and choosing to just focus on things that make them happy, such as playing video games, resting, and investing in their hobbies. A lot of guys, though, that I know that have opted out of the workforce, they're actually just sometimes sleeping all day long. Like, they'll wake up and they'll leave a message like, "Hey, I agree. I'm just getting ready to go back to bed." And it's like, bro, it's 8 a.m. Yeah, man. Getting ready to go back to bed. Did you sleep last night? Yeah, bro. I just got up a little while ago. So wait. You're going back to bed. Listen to me, man. I don't have a job, all right? I finished my military service, so I've got that income coming in, and I've got another income coming in from somewhere else. Yeah, bro, listen, I gotta get back in bed, man. I gotta get back in bed, all right? You do you. You do you. This is how society is right now. A lot of these men do not need to work anymore, and they're not. Some of these men, they don't even play video games. They're just laying around the house all day, sleeping, just relaxing on the couch, yawning, eating, relaxing, taking it easy. Taking it easy, all right? If they feel like they want physical intimacy, God gave them two perfectly good heads, all right? They knock one out real quick. And as you get older, there's something they don't tell you. As you get older, for many of us, there's some who try to act like they're tough and big and bad. For many of us, our testosterone levels begin to go down. It's definitely completely different. It's way different than it is when you're when you're like 17 or 18 or a teenager. When you start to go into your 40s and your 50s, and it starts to taper down, especially depending on some things that you can do. And as a result, you feel much better because you're not, you're not like jazzed up like you usually are. Like, oh my gosh, I need to go and find a chick now. You feel nice and relaxed. You're like, I'm good. But of course, there's some guys who have like an addiction to adult content, but they're more of the exception and not the standard. A lot of guys, when we hit our 40s and 50s, we just stop caring, especially after some of the hardships we've been through in life. We kind of lose attraction a little bit, and then again, our testosterone levels, they kind of like taper down a bit. So this whole oh, I gotta go reproduce, it's not like, man, I'm just gonna lay in bed and relax, gonna watch a little Inuyasha, not the sequel, the original. Okay, yeah, just taking it. Card Captor Sakura. I haven't seen that one in a while. That's kind of where we're at right now. These men are just taking it easy. I know Mayumi, if he gets to this part in the video, would know those references. Oh gosh, Mayumi watches so much damn anime, but she is Japanese. Guys, women did this. Women did this to themselves, and a lot of them are going to find themselves in extraordinary hardship because they're not going to find good men anymore. They're just basically going to find a situation where the streets will be there, and either they're going to be in homeless shelters or living on the streets or in the woods. Let the beer take care of them. But men are not, these men who are walking away are never going to come back because life is better when you just, simplify things. Men are minimalist by nature. Most men are minimalist by nature, and that's another very important thing to understand.
If you are brave enough, go ahead and share it in the comments below, so people on the internet can call you a bootlicker or a lazy zoomer respectively. Now, the second option also has the advantage that if someone asks you what you do for work, you can just tell them that you are working on a new business or taking some time off. The Fed study found that this was one of the biggest reasons people didn't want to take on jobs that they thought were beneath them. Now, no matter what side of the fence you are on, this issue affects us all. These millions of people are out of work at the same time as we have major issues with worker shortages in our most important industries. And this trend is only going to get worse unless something changes. So it's time to learn how money works to find out how these people are surviving without work and what it means for the rest of the workforce if they never come back. Apart from a few early retirees that made a lot of money at a young age, most of the people who are not working and are not looking for work are living extremely basic lives. Eberstadt's research went beyond the broader demographic studies and focused a lot on trying to figure out what these people were actually doing with their time. Now, the next few minutes are going to contain some hard-to-swallow pills, and even though Eberstadt is sometimes a bit direct with the way he lays out the facts, his research and his recommendations address some of the most important issues in our society. He found through national surveys that the average man not in work or looking for work was basically doing what you might expect. They were sitting at home, spending a majority of time behind a screen. Most of them contribute very little to looking after other members of a household, and they were underrepresented in other civic activities like volunteering, even though they had more free time than their peers who worked or studied. He also poked holes in the idea that a lot of these men had just become stay-at-home spouses taking care of chores to support their working partner, a role that was, in the past, typically performed by women. Unfortunately, according to the federal survey data he collated, the average labor force dropout spent an equal amount of time on household care as the average employed woman, and 5 minutes less per day than the average unemployed man, who would theoretically be spending at least some of their time looking for a new job. What they were spending their time on was leisure activities and sleeping.
You see, what's freaking out society is the realization that men are not going to just try to make the world a better place. Society has nothing for men, so men no longer have anything for society. Back when men had status and were shareholders, they would fight for the betterment of society. Society basically took away their authority, but left them with responsibility. So if men have no authority, then we're not going to take on responsibility that we don't have to. We're going to live our best possible lives. And like I said, simplicity is luxury for a man. That's why you have pictures of men who sleep on air mattresses, living their best lives, making $150K a year, and then they get a girlfriend and now their wallets are empty, but they're like, oh, I'm so happy because, I have a girlfriend and I have all of this useless stuff that I don't want. And you can see that the smiles were authentic before they ever got into a relationship.
The average person who had dropped out of the labor force was also far less likely to have children or a partner, and Eberstadt theorized that there were two reasons for this. The first reason was that children, dating, and a family life are expensive commitments that people trying to get by without a job just simply wouldn't be able to afford. The second reason was that people with a family to support were inherently more motivated to go out and provide, even if it meant working a job that a single person wouldn't. Of course, this is a large sample size, and there are plenty of people with children who don't work and plenty of couples totally outside of the labor force as well. But even without these typical responsibilities, daily life is still very expensive. Government benefits for people out of work typically only extend to those people who are either actively seeking work or cannot work because of an illness or disability. The exact makeup of these assistance programs varies state to state. And of course, outside of America, different countries have different levels of social welfare. But America is where this trend has been most pronounced, and it's also where a bulk of the research on this trend has been done. So as anybody who has ever tried to apply for government welfare in America will tell you, the burden of proof to qualify for these payments can be exceptionally high, with the only real exception being COVID-era stimulus, where arguably the burden of proof for payments was too low. Saying you need unemployment payments because you would prefer to stay at home all day vaping and playing Fortnite isn't going to fly with Uncle Sam. What Eberstat did find, though, was that it had become much easier for people to qualify for disability payments, which in most circumstances do not require recipients to be actively looking for work to maintain their payments. In his own book, he highlights how difficult it was to find consistent data on all of the government programs that might be available to these people. And of course, needlessly pointing the finger at assistance to some of society's most vulnerable people is not the point here. What is, though, is that according to data from the Department of Social Security, annual disability insurance payments have outpaced all other major programs. They provide the data as a table, but here is a nice visual line chart. Dr. Dwight R. Lee, an economist, also proposed that a major element that Eberstat overlooked was that a lot of these men were working. They were just doing it in the underground economy, which was estimated to be contributing about $2 trillion, or about 12% of US GDP. This could include these people doing anything from working informal cash jobs to skirt tax and minimum wage laws to outright illegal operations like shoplifting or selling drugs. So the work of these researchers paints an image of this growing group of individuals mooching off friends, family, and the government, while wasting their days away playing video games or being an overall burden on society. It's not exactly flattering, but to be fair, there are certainly people living these lives, and with nationwide or even global demographic trends like this, broad strokes need to be made. The researchers studying this trend are actually highly sympathetic to the situation of these people, and they seem motivated to actually fix the cause of these problems. I will of course be leaving a link to the full book in the video description if you want to read it yourself, as well as some great interviews these men have done that lets them articulate their grim feelings in a way that's a bit more human. The reality is that I can personally see if just a few things went differently in my own life, I could have easily fallen into the same comfortable trap. Most of you watching could have too, whether you realize it or not.
He calls it the same comfortable trap, but what he fails to realize and acknowledge is that the demographic he's speaking of, which are predominantly men going up to the age of 55, are men who have already been in the workforce for decades more often than not. They've put in their dues. They've actually worked. They've actually contributed. They've built something. So they have the option of now sitting back and relaxing. They talk about these men living, far below their means. That's basically how the wealthy operate. That's how the wealthy have always operated, typically by living far below their means. And most men don't need a lot to survive, nor do they want a lot. They specifically want the things that they enjoy, and then they don't want any other things that are going to create clutter. Men want their peace. They want to relax. They want a clean and open environment. It's women who need all of the stuff and all of the other fandangles to make them happy, and of course they're still never happy. Typical men will wear the same clothes year and year again until it starts to fall apart, and then they'll go out and buy something new. And men, we basically hold on to things much longer than women in the sense that our electronics and everything, we take care of our stuff and we use it to the fullest. Women are just constantly replacing, upgrading, replacing, upgrading. And, while you can do that, you'll eventually find yourself with very little to show for it. This is the reason why I've said that even though hard economic times are coming, Elon has told Americans to prepare for hard times in the short term. He's planning to cut $2 trillion in debt. And they're going to start shrinking the government. That's the plan. And Project 2025 is no joke. I mean, this is just a reality people have to wake up to. And a lot of men are going to gain a lot of wealth during hard times because they're downsizing. They have no wives. They have no kids. They're choosing to relax and just live their best lives. While women have this extravagant expenses, I'm hearing from even guys who are baby boomers who are living in vans, and they're happy living in vans. And they won't change it. And these dudes have money, they have bread, and they're very comfortable. And this is going to be a continued pattern for a lot of these men, where they have just enough to survive and thrive and no more. and they're just stacking paper, they're just stacking bread, and it's just adding up. And that's just the reality that we're in right now. And who's guys? Women did it to themselves. Many of these women will never be able to find a man because they don't actually want a man. They want basically an SLAVE. They want someone who's going to just keep on providing indefinitely while they're out there having their fun. And men are done with it. Men have woken up, they see what society is, and they know that they're just there to keep on endlessly give to society while having everything having everything taken from them. So they're like, why are we going to help a society that doesn't even care about us? We're just going to live our best lives comfortably and walk away. And and guys, men going their own way, they don't care if society collapses. What do you guys think regarding everything we discussed? Let's talk about it in the comments. Like the video if you like it. Don't forget to subscribe. And if you like the video, share the video. And just remember that all roads lead to MWM and walking away. And cheers.